How are Agilists faring in the pandemic? How are we finding meaning and purpose in these troubled times? How can we connect, inspire, and support each other? We will explore answers to these questions and more. This is Agile Caravanserai. I'm Sanjeev Augustine. Jim Highsmith is one of the 17 signatories that met in Snowbird, Utah in 2001 and gave us the gift of the Agile Manifesto. For nearly 2 decades since then, Jim has inspired me with his example of leadership agility. In particular, Jim's model of leadership collaboration has stood the test of time as an awesome agile alternative to the traditional command and control management model. Jim is a prolific writer and the author of 5 books on Agile, and each one of them has had a tremendous impact on the Agile movement. Today, Jim is an executive consultant with ThoughtWorks, helping their customers with their Agile and digital transformations. I first met Jim in the early 2000s and was inspired by him when I wrote my own first book, Managing Agile Projects, in 2004. When Jim and I struck up a friendship, I quickly discovered that he and I had this shared belief and passion for complex adaptive systems as an underlying model and metaphor for Agile methods. Jim's own methodology, adaptive software development, actually plugged heavily into this. And so does the methods that we know today, such as Scrum and extreme programming. Also in 2004, at Jim's invitation, several of us came together and collaborated on the Declaration of Interdependence for Agile and Adaptive Methods. And that group included Alistair Coburn and David Anderson. Jim's leadership propelled the founding of the Agile Project Leadership Network soon thereafter. Those early days also saw a couple of us taking Agile methods and applying them in novel ways for the very first time to the disciplines of management and leadership, and that has laid the underpinnings for what today has come to be known as strategic agility. So as my longtime friend and mentor, I really find Jim to be the classic example of a pragmatic leader who really brings out the very best in every single person that he meets. Jim, it's great to have you here with us today. And we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the Agile Manifesto. First of all, thank you for putting that out and giving it as a gift to all of us in the community. What are some of your reflections on the Agile movement?
Well, thanks, Sanjeev. I appreciate you asking me to do this. It has been kind of interesting in kind of reflecting back myself. When we got started in doing the Agile Manifesto, the group of us that got together, there were really kind of 2 main goals in mind. One was to have people deliver better software, so to get better at our software development jobs. And the second one was to have more fun at work. So it was really a social goal. And those were kind of driving a lot of us when we put the manifesto together.
To have more fun at work, you said? To have more fun at work, you said?
To have more fun at work, right. So we had more fun when we wrote the manifesto. We did some working together and then we went skiing, some of us. And as I reflected on this, I thought about Agile reflects our journey to uncertainty. And if you think about it, I can think about it because I was actually there in the 1980s. Information technology change was very slow. Corporations had 3 to 5 year corporate plans, and they had 10, 20, 30, 40 people in their planning department. And that was the rise of a methodology called information engineering. And it had a 1 to 2 year planning cycle before you ever put anything out there. And I call it extreme waterfall. And that was the way businesses were back in the 80s. In the 90s, both business and technology started to accelerate some. You had the demise of long corporate plans. You had the demise of big corporate planning departments, and the rise of the RAD movement, the Rapid Application Development movement, and the beginnings of what would become Agile. So I did RAD development, rapid development. My first project was in the early 1990s. And so all during the 90s, extreme programming was evolving, Scrum was evolving, DSDM was evolving, adaptive development was evolving. And then during the 2000s, the Agile Manifesto was written. So during the 2000s, I include like 2000 to 2010 in here, 2020 in here, things were moving much faster. Agile emerged and continued to evolve. You had things like DevOps and Agile project management and Kanban and product design. Whether you consider all of those part of the Agile movement or separate doesn't make any difference. They all contributed to this better responsiveness to our business organizations. And then 2020 arrived. In biology, they talk about something they call a punctuated equilibrium. And the most famous punctuated equilibrium, or one that most people know about, was the demise of the dinosaurs. It was caused by a meteor hit and rapid change in climate, sort of like we're facing now, right? And the dinosaurs died as a species, and mammals evolved from that and emerged. And so I think COVID is somewhat of our punctuated equilibrium, because we don't know how things are going. We don't know how things are going to go. All we know is we're going to have to adapt rapidly. And to adapt to a punctuated equilibrium, there are two strategies that work. One is luck. And you think about the period we're in now. Airlines are unlucky, hotels are unlucky, restaurants are unlucky, grocery stores are lucky, Amazon is lucky, and it's just luck. Now, the second thing is to be more adaptable. So whether you're in the unlucky group or the lucky group, you have to become more adaptable. So look at restaurants. They're building igloos and outside, containers that they can use during the wintertime. And companies that are lucky are adapting too. Amazon's hiring another 100,000 people. So that's their adaptation. So during a punctuated equilibrium, the Agile movement, particularly as it moves into management, is more important than it was at just about any other time.
Right. Thanks for that answer. I think it's interesting. So are you also saying, just a little bit of clarification, you mentioned COVID is one part of the punctuated equilibrium, and climate change is a bigger part that might be sort of looming out there?
Well, all I'm saying is that the dinosaurs' demise was caused by climate change.
Okay.
It may be our demise too. Maybe bigger than COVID.
All right.
But one of the things, if you look at it, the Agile movement has gone from a niche to a trend to a movement in 20 years. And very few things that come up as trends last for that long. So I attribute that to the value basis of Agile and then its continual evolving.
Fantastic. All right, I got another question for you, and this one's personal. So I've known you for coming up on, I guess, close to 20 years. So I know you to be a cyclist. I think you used to cycle when we were back in those ALN days or APLN days, used to be like 40, 50 miles on the bike. And I also know you historically from your books and other to be an avid mountain climber and mountaineer. How's all that going in the pandemic?
Well, I'm not doing as much mountaineering these days because I'm sort of beyond that, but I'm still cycling quite a bit. It's interesting that I was able to combine my software development background and what I did at work and what I did at play was mountaineering. And so in my first book, Adaptive Software Development, I used a lot of climbing analogies to kind of get points across. The two biggest ones I think I made was one, matching your capability and your goal. In climbing, in rock climbing, they have levels of rock climbing. Mm-hmm. So for me, where I was, 5'4", 5'5" was easy. 5'9" was doable. 5'11" was about the top, and I couldn't do a 5'12". And software development teams are somewhat similar. You've got to have the right capabilities in order to develop what you need to do. And are you doing something that's fairly simple? Or are you doing something that's state of the art? And you've got to understand what that takes and what kind of capability it takes. The second thing is the map is not the territory. And in particular, you can lose a 15-foot vertical wall in a 40-foot contour interval map. Mm-hmm. So you got to have a map that kind of showing you where you're going, but you got to adapt as you go up and you actually learn more about where you are. And the same thing happens in a software project. You've got a sort of a plan of where you want to go, but you've got to be willing to adapt as you move along and learn more about the actual territory. So those were kind of the things that I've taken away from my mountaineering experience.
I love that quote, the map is not the territory. And just in your experience, how have you been able to sort of reconcile those two, to update the map and align it with the territory as you go along?
Well, what I've advocated doing for a long time is not just an iteration plan, but a release plan. And so a release plan, again, is sort of that map. And you realize that here's your goal, but you may have to change how you get there. And in fact, what we've learned from lean development is you may have to even change your goal from time to time and pivot from one goal to another goal that's maybe a little bit different. So we've had to learn to adapt to plans that we've made and not spend too much time on the plan in the beginning.
Makes perfect sense. All right, I got one more question for you, and this is sort of looking to the future. You've been an inspiration to me for sure, and to a whole generation of Agilists out there. And we have a new generation of Agilists entering. Like you said, Agile is this huge, large global movement. So what words of inspiration do you have just for the next 20 years and all of those who are now part of this movement that you helped create?
Yeah. Well, I would want people to think about the values of Agile, and in particular, individuals and teams. So it's really all about individuals and teams and how we do better at work and how we have more fun. It's about working software. And you could elevate that to say, thinking about working products in a little different environment. The customer collaboration, get close to the customer all the way through the project or all the way through the product development cycle. And then responsive to change. And I think those four values, if given a little bit of interpretation, work today just like they did before. And so think about the values that are important. And then envision and explore into the future. So have this mindset of trying to envision where you want to go and then exploring into that vision. Although today with COVID and the uncertainty around it, it's more like speculate and evolve. Mm-hmm. You have to kind of speculate and be willing to change that speculation fairly quickly. And then again, the fun at work thing. So what leadership model are you using? There are a lot of new leadership models out there. Management 3.0, adaptive leadership, servant leadership. In the old days, we had command control, and now we have a whole plethora of other names, but they're more responsive leadership models. Collaboration, and how do we extend collaboration more and more remote as opposed to in person as we get through this COVID period. Team building and decision making. So how do you do all of those things that relate to people and individuals? And then the last thing I would say here is contribute to your profession, your community, and your society. So contribute to software development, contribute to society and how it's going. So do things for your community and your society as well as your profession. And I think that's what the Agile Manifesto authors were thinking when we first got together. I mean, we all knew that we were also, would like to get some benefit out of it somewhere along the way, but we were really wanting to change the profession. We wanted to make some changes to the profession, and that was our primary goal. And the fact that we might make some money at it later, that would be fine. We can all use a little bit of money here and there, but it was really more about the profession. So I would think those are the things that I would talk about.
So Jim, that's a wonderful closing thought. I know we find meaning and purpose when we look beyond ourselves. And I think your advice over here is for us to look to beyond ourselves, to our profession, to our communities, and to the larger world, and to find ways to contribute. Is that correct?
Right. So kind of in summary of those three questions, I think Agile reflects our journey to uncertainty. So it's all about uncertainty and the response to that uncertainty. Secondly, about the climbing stories, I think it's important that we use stories and metaphors to communicate our ideas. And I think it's really important that we just don't try to list out the facts, but we use stories and analogies. And then the future continues to be how we sort of envision where the future is going and evolve to that future iteratively over time.
evolve to the future iteratively over time. So Jim, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.